Okay, welcome everyone to Lorin and Yanel Play a Game. Tonight we're super excited because we have Dante Joseph and Caitlin Deniente here with us from the St. Mary's University esports team. Caitlin is a coach and Dante is a athlete. He plays League of Legends. And Yanel should be on her way shortly. We're going to go ahead and start without her, but we're really excited to learn about League of Legends on this first part of our series. So let me go ahead and get everybody on stream. So here we are, and I just wanted to welcome y'all again, Caitlin and Dante.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you again for having us.
I'm really excited to talk about, I think one of my favorite games, but I don't know if that's the same for you, Dante, if it's one of your favorites.
It has its ups and downs, but every time I do come back to the game because I do enjoy it.
Well, this is amazing for me because Yanel and I are really very much beginners. Like, I haven't even really started. I just got to the first screen. And I think especially for people that maybe are a little bit older and getting started, it can seem really daunting, but I'm just beyond excited to be learning from y'all and to have everybody has the opportunity to hear your expertise. So I'm really curious, when did you start playing this game?
Did you want to answer, Caitlin, or did you want me to go
I'll go
first?
first. So I started playing this game in, I think, 2011 or 2012, what was like at the time referred to as season two. For reference, we're in season 11, so it's been quite a few years.
Wow. So how many years has that been?
I think that's about 9 seasons, so 9 or 10 years now.
Wow, that's amazing.
What about you, Dante?
I've been playing since about season five, and season five for me was about 2013. I got recommended by a friend when I was in, I think about middle school, and he said, "Hey, there's this free game you should try," and I gave it a try, and I've been playing since.
That's amazing. And I might not have caught this at first, but I was curious. So when you say seasons, is it like a TV show, or is that a set amount of time, or what does that signify?
Yeah, so a season is typically the ranked season. So within the game, anyone can play a ranked match and climb the ladder, and it resets once a year. And the season is about 11 months long. So the majority of the year, and then in between seasons, there's a month of preseason where new changes are implemented and players get a chance to kind of try out some of the big season changes.
Okay, that's really interesting because that's something that I wasn't aware of. So generally, it sounds like it's a set schedule, so a beginner person would basically know when this was happening pretty much.
I think for beginners, it wouldn't matter too much, not until they started getting um, uh, really into the game and leveling up. Um, Once they kind of figure out what it is they like to play and if they're even interested in trying to climb the ranked ladder. Not everybody is interested in that. And so it may not apply to them as much.
That's good to know because it's still very new to me, and I was just curious how it would affect me as a beginning player. But I'm also really curious too because esports is something that I'm just learning about, and I was really curious. Where can we watch you play?
A great question. So, our esports program, our competitive matches, or really our competitive season, starts in October. And come October, we'll have our matches streamed on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/STMU esports. And there's where you'll be able to see the team that Dante's on, as well as some of our other esports teams.
That is really cool. And I'm hoping maybe, is there a link? Well, I guess we can just find the link and maybe Yanel can put it in the chat for people to go and check out. But I was also curious too, is there a schedule where we can go and see where the scheduled events are and what times they are?
At this moment, no. Just because the league has not published the dates yet. But when we do get those dates, then we'll be putting them on our athletic website. And I can send y'all both those links.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I just saw that Yanel just popped up and I wanted to just check in with her. So if you want to say hello, Yanel. And it looks like maybe she's about to talk. Of course, you can always chime in, Yanel, when you're ready. And I'm not sure if maybe you're watching on the stream and there's a little bit of a delay, but just to let everyone know, Yanel is here. And one of the other questions that I wanted to ask y'all both was, and this is for Caitlin and Dante, just a little bit about the plot of the game and what it entails, because I was reading up about it and I was trying to understand just the meaning of the main plot. It sounds like it's a team game, like you're in teams of 5, but what is the premise of the game?
Hi, I'm sorry, I cut out. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. No, I was just mentioning, like, what is the premise or the plot of the game?
Did you want me to answer this one, Caitlin?
I'll take this one. So the kind of objective or the objective to the game is essentially to destroy your opponent's base. You're going to be in a team of 5 people against another team of 5 people, and pretty much anything and everything in the game is used to destroy your opponent's base. Once you've done that, you've won the game.
Wow. So then a beginner could expect that once you get in, are you automatically assigned into a team of people, or is there like a type of training area or island that beginners go to at first?
Yeah, so beginners will typically be able to, or I think now they're put into a tutorial match to kind of learn the controls and some of the basics of the game. But once you're past the tutorial and some of the early levels, when you queue up for a game, unless you're queuing up with a group of friends, you'll be assigned random teammates.
Okay, that makes sense, because that was the other question that I was going to ask you, if people are able to play all together with people that they know, or if it's strictly at random.
Yeah, I think honestly it's one of the best things about League of Legends is that because it's a 5-person team, you can create a group with 4 other friends and play game after game. I personally think it's a lot more enjoyable that way than just playing as a single individual.
That makes sense. The other thing that I was curious about as well, and this is just from looking at the website and just some of the web pages that talk about it, like it seems like the game has its own terminology. And I was really curious because I saw people referring to a lane and a turret, and I was wondering what that actually means.
Dante, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, I can take this one. So, the terminology Elaine generally means it's in every game that you play, there's going to be a long winding road. That's pretty much where most of the action happens. It's where you're going to do most of your battles, where you're going to farm for most of your golden experience, and essentially, it's how you're going to run down and end the game when you get to that point, or have the game ended upon you. As for turrets, a turret is a defensive structure that is placed in the middle of the lanes. There's 2 at the very beginning. There's a third one as soon as you enter the enemy base, and then there's 2 more at the very end of the game. And what these turrets do is they protect the I guess the overall game. and the people that you're playing against. And if you're not careful, they do damage to you. So when you're playing, you have to take those out as you go.
Wow, that sounds pretty complicated. I mean, is it something that people really kind of pick up? Though I guess if you have four other people with you, is it something where people divvy up certain jobs when you're doing or playing a game together?
When you first start playing, it kind of shows you that there are specific places that people go to, but as time progresses, you eventually come together and take out the turrets together.
That makes sense. And it was interesting too because does the terrain ever change? I mean, the thing that I saw was like an island. And so I was wondering if that's like typical or do they have like different scenarios where you're in different regions?
So
Yeah.
as of, I think, oh, did you want to take this one, Caitlin?
Yeah. So, um, yes and no, kind of. So there's a couple of different maps in the game, and based on those maps, you'll play um, pretty much the same objective every single time, destroy the enemy base. But sometimes there are different elements involved. One of the game modes, ARAM, is like this really long bridge. It's only one lane, but there's still turrets. You're still playing in the team of five, but the map isn't as large as the more popular map, Summoner's Rift.
That makes sense. It's really fascinating because again, I was trying to read up a little bit and there were a lot of different terms and I wasn't really able to, I would say, put them together to actually kind of understand. But this is really, really helpful. The other thing that I wanted to ask as well are there other words that you think would be pertinent for a beginner to at least try to research or find out about just in terms of being able to play the game or at least learn when they're just getting started?
Good question. Dante, what do you think?
I think that one of the biggest things that someone who's just starting out should probably start learning would be the word, I guess, farming, just so that they can get more like understanding of the term, because that term never leaves the longer that you play, and it becomes more important the more you take the game seriously. It's, um, I guess, just to cut corners without having them to look it up, or they want to look it up for more information. Farming is essentially acquiring of gold and experience, and it's something that it becomes more important the better that you get at it. That's one term that I'd say is probably one of the most important ones because a lot of like even older players like myself, I tend to forget how important these terms are and I don't practice it as much, but it does make a difference.
That makes sense. And so I guess does that, and just to kind of make sure, because again, I'm really at a very, very beginner level, is that the type of things that you do? Like, are there tasks that you do to earn money so that you can buy, say, like weapons or things like that? Or is it more kind of like a plunder thing where you have to fight people or find gold or something like that?
So the term farming is like there's gonna be like little minions in the lanes, like whenever you go started in a lane, the long winding road that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
There's these minions that whenever you take them down, you get golden experience, and that's essentially what farming is. And getting the gold helps you with buying new items and new weapons so that you can be stronger. And the gold or the experience helps you with leveling up and putting you ahead in the game. So it's like I said, it's important to make sure that you not only know what it is, but become efficient at it, just so that you can get ahead faster in games.
That makes sense. Thank you. That really, really helps because, again, I wasn't aware of the minions. So, what do they look like? I mean, are there labels or is it just something that you learn as you progress?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can now.
Oh, okay, awesome. I was worried. So I can share my screen briefly if you'd like, and I can give you an example of what he's speaking of. Would
Oh,
that be helpful?
yeah, that would be great. So,
Okay, cool.
and actually, it'll take me a second to do that if you don't mind. I didn't know if you wanted to, since now we can actually hear you, I didn't know if you had some questions of your own.
Awesome. Yeah, I take your time, Lauren. So I started playing earlier today. And I started with the very basic, like setting up an account, and then it takes you through a small kind of like training and where you are explained like where you start. As Dante was mentioning, there's 3 lanes, and it gives you examples on what to do on each lane, and it kind of walks you through. So I think it's very useful for beginners. I was trying to get familiar with each of the champions' abilities. I thought that was very interesting, and I learned that there are over 100 different champions.
Wow, I had no idea. And I hate to break in, but I was going to ask you if you could share your screen in Discord so I can get it up on stream. That would be awesome.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
And actually, while I'm doing that, and it looks like, oh, there's your stream, I'll kind of work on that. But I was also curious because I saw that on the webpage it mentioned that the game is arena based, and I was really, really curious about what that actually means. Is that like a type of game, or does it refer to, well, actually, what does it refer to?
Yeah, so I believe what that'll be talking about is basically the genre of the game, a MOBA, a multiplayer online battle arena, which is essentially every single game of the 10 players, playing against each other will be housed in this one arena. And this one arena will have the base of each respective team. And then once you've destroyed the opposing team's base, you've essentially won the game. And so every single game will be its own arena, if that makes sense. The map will stay the same, but after someone has won and lost, you can essentially play again, and you'll start, at your base and play an entire new round in basically a fresh arena.
That's really cool. Thank you. That makes more sense. So, and it sounds like I can hear something, so I'm gonna try to fix that. But hopefully Yanel's stream is up. So I'm not sure if it's visible. If not, we might just try something different. Just to double check, Yanel, can you see the stream?
Hey, let me go ahead and check, because I am
You can move your champion by
currently in the
right-clicking a
game,
destination.
so let me just exit. Back.
Oh yeah, I see it. We can see you.
Okay, awesome. So back to the minions. I'm sorry, I was the one over here, the red one up here. I don't know if you can see it. The smaller ones, those are minions.
Minions have spawned. Attack the
And
minions by
you
right-clicking
can
on
see
them once.
the whole map down here on the right-hand side. Are you able to see that?
Oh yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like looking at the screen because I mean, again, this is like my first time looking at it. And so, what is that object that's over there on the right? It looks like a type of weapon. Is that the weapon that you're wielding?
Is it the one that's glowing now in blue?
Yeah, and I was actually curious.
That's actually one of the turrets. And those are protected by... They protect themselves, and the minions, for example here, the red ones are attacking it. So in this case, it's asking you to get closer and attack. So you simply just click on them. You right click. So this is a tutorial for it. I'm not sure if we want to pause it and then go back to speaking some more.
Oh, sure. No problem. Actually, I was going to ask Caitlin and Dante, I mean, is this something that's pretty typical for a game, or at least a person that's at least in the beginner part?
Yeah, this is typically what a tutorial match is going to look like for a new player.
This is very cool. Okay, so I'm going to actually go ahead and switch back. So let me get to where we were. Okay, so let me just do a couple of things, but just to continue, and thank you for the interlude. That was really interesting to see everything in action. But I did wanted to ask, and I think what we were talking about was arena based, but I was really curious, just kind of moving on in our discussion, if you and Dante, or Caitlin and Dante, could recommend maybe like a website or a Discord server, or generally a place for people to hang out, so that way somebody who's a beginner can go and learn from other people.
Sure, I'll take this one. So there is a subreddit community, Summoner School, that is pretty much all things like explained for people of all skill levels. So brand new players to intermediate to advanced to expert level players. Because there's just so much to learn in League of Legends, they have champions, items, strategies. I think that's a really good resource to use, just because there's so many different topics. You can kind of get started on one and just explore from there.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful because, again, I mean, I didn't know if there was like one particular place that people tend to hang out at online or if there were multiple places, but that sounds like that's going to be one of the places that I go. And I was going to double check again. What was the address? It's our
Summoner School.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And that's just one. I mean, there's a ton of resources out there for players of, again, all skill level, and players who enjoy playing one champion, multiple champion, or a bunch of different champions. It really just depends, I think, on like people's learning styles, whether they are someone who is like, you know, let me just play the game and I'll figure it out when I'm in the game, versus someone who likes to do research and read articles and watch videos.
That makes sense. And it sounds too like maybe, as you mentioned, it is kind of a personal preference. And I guess depending on what you find, you may find a community of people on a certain website that you get along with, and you kind of go from there, I'm thinking. But I was really curious, and this is just kind of going to a slightly different area, and I wanted to check in with Yanel as well to see if she had any questions. But one of the things that I noticed when we were doing research on the game and looking at it is it really seems like this game has a huge cultural impact, and I was wondering if y'all could speak to that, because it really does seem like it's a really big deal.
Dante, do you want to speak towards this one?
About the cultural impact?
Yeah.
I'd say the cultural impact for League is pretty good from what I've seen and experienced. There's a lot of like different things that allow people of like different backgrounds to play. The other day I was looking on Twitch about like the League of Legends community games, and there's a lot of game like leagues that were going on that promote like I guess cultural diversity. Like they have a lot of leagues for people that are like of I guess different walks of life. They have some for different like races, but not like in a sense of like I guess separating. But it's like so that other people can get a chance to like display their skills and have like a platform to play on as well.
That's really cool. I was also curious too because, it sounds like it seems to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like this game is very associated with esports and just the fact that esports are becoming so popular. Like, I haven't seen it yet, but I had heard that, they're starting to broadcast esports events on like cable and things like that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some of those in the past. I think for me, some of the, I think, impactful or some of the moments that kind of make me like say, oh, that's so interesting, that's so amazing when it comes to League of Legends is probably their World Championship, where all the professional teams who've competed all year, who qualify for this large event, play in person against some of the other, greatest teams around the world. And um, over the past couple of years, I mean, they've had the World Championship in, these crazy stadiums. They've sold out the Staples Center and Madison Square Garden and Olympic stadiums, and I think that kind of can speak towards the scope of how popular it is, not just as a game to play, but also as a spectator sport as well.
That's really fascinating. And so I'm really curious, is there like a US national team?
So, not exactly. In North America, we have what is called the LCS, and I forget what it stands for actually, but I believe it's this season 8 or 10 professional teams that are competing um, against each other. Um, and then there are some competitions where you'll have like the best of um, countries or regions, and it's more of like an invitational or more of a showcase kind of competition.
That makes sense. I mean, I was just imagining in my head like someday it might be an Olympic sport and just how that might look. And I actually just noticed that CJ is here with us in Discord, and I wanted to check in and see if you had a question.
Thank you. I saw an email and signed up today for Discord and Twitch, and just to find out about the league. I was under the impression that maybe it would be more of like a Xbox or PlayStation type game, but seems like it can just be played on a regular desktop.
I was going to say welcome and thank you for your comment, because that is one question that I also wanted to ask Caitlin and Dante. I mean, what are the range of devices that you can use to play the game?
So for League of Legends, it's going to be PC only. However, the game developer Riot does have a few of their games on mobile. Most notably, Teamfight Tactics, which uses the characters from League of Legends in a, I guess, shorter strategy game. There is also a version of League of Legends that you can play on your smartphone called Wild Rift, and it is
Wow.
pretty much the exact same setup that you'll see in game when you're on your PC, but you're just playing it on your phone.
Wow. Do y'all have a preference for the type of device that you use? Do you feel that one is maybe better than the other or easier to play?
Dante, what do you think about League on PC versus Wild Rift on mobile?
Personally, I like having the flexibility to play on the mobile if that is something that's accessible, of course. But personally, I like playing on the computer just because you have, I guess, better ways to upgrade your computer so that it runs games better. Whereas on your phone, it's just whatever you have with your phone device. Where, like on the computer, if you have a certain like if your game's not running efficiently, you can always upgrade your computer to run it even better, or you have more flexibility in terms of how good your computer can run a certain game, and that it also extends to League.
That makes sense. And just to kind of add to that, in terms of your recommendation as players, do you think that there would be a device that you would recommend for someone who's just getting started to playing, just getting started playing the game?
I think personally it just comes down to the individual's personal preference. If someone doesn't have a PC, then I would say definitely start out on your smartphone, or play the mobile version of the game and see if that kind of game is something that you enjoy. Because if it is, then it may be worthwhile looking at a PC. Otherwise, if you've played PC games before and you think that's a good experience, then I'd say stick with the PC and mobile games if that's something you like to do.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. And I did want to pause for a second and check in with Yanel and CJ and see if y'all had any follow-up questions.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not a follow-up question, but kind of a discussion. I think it's very interesting that whenever a person starts playing League of Legends, it turns into also upgrading your actual PC setup. And I've experienced it firsthand. My fiance likes playing League, and we had to like go out and buy new stuff and create a whole new computer and get a more expensive graphics card, and it goes on to a whole nother level. But it's really interesting to be a new player, so it's very helpful to hear all of this. Um, as far as Wild Rift, I know that it's fairly new. Um, is it something that is exciting in the League of Legends community? Because from what I've heard, uh, people have waited quite some time, especially when a person is traveling. They prefer to at least have the option to play. So that's interesting too. How do you feel about that? Is it something that you prefer to use when you're traveling? Is it something that you just would rather not play and stick to PC?
So for me personally, when it comes to League of Legends, I enjoy playing on a PC. But there are times where I feel lazy or I'm laying down and I just want to play a game, and so I'll play it on my phone. Um, but yeah, the traveling aspect, I honestly haven't thought about it that much. Just because in the past when I've traveled, I've brought my Switch instead and haven't played, wouldn't play any other games except Animal Crossing on that. But that's just me. I think when I'm traveling, I don't want to feel competitive, and so I'm not gonna play those competitive games on my phone.
Thank you. That's really illuminating because, I guess it sounds like it's really people's personal preference and things like that. But I wanted to thank Dante again. I know that he might need to leave a little bit early from the stream, and I just wanted to express my gratitude and also thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me, and again, super sorry for having to leave early.
Oh, it's no problem. We are totally looking forward to the rest of the series as well. So, and learning all about strategy and characters and just bringing it all together. So, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
And I also wanted to check back in with everybody. I had a question, and I'm checking to make sure that we haven't really covered this ground before, but Yanel and I are really interested in games and how adults play them, and really our stream is about, finding games to play as adults. And I was really curious to know, Caitlin, if you had an opinion on maybe what makes League of Legends, or what might make it fairly attractive for an adult player.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. Personally, I think it's either one of two things. I think it's either having the opportunity to play a competitive game with a group of your friends, or it's um, more of the competitive aspect, not as much the social aspect. I think players who are very competitive and like competitive games and like to play the ranked ladder and see how far they can go will enjoy this game, just because there's so much you have to know and learn and practice. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it depends. I think there's a lot of different things that people can get out of this game. Some people just like playing one character because they really identify with that character, or that character is funny or thematically interesting. Um, but yeah, I think it definitely comes down to one of two things: either the fact that it can be a very social game, or it can really appeal to players with high competitive drive.
That sounds really amazing. I mean, it sounds like you can really, really get, I don't want to say engulfed, but I mean, it sounds like you can really, really occupy yourself with learning the lore of the game, which that sounds really cool to me. I was also going to ask as well, because you mentioned the social aspects of it, and I was wondering, is this a type of game where, you have a lot of different players? Is there like a communication channel within the game when you're playing that's open, like in some of the other games that we've seen?
So that's actually a really recent addition. Like within the past 2 years, they have added in-game voice channels, but only if you're in a pre-made team. So if you're playing and you've invited two of your friends to join you, then not only are you playing the same game together, but you can also be in the same channel together. It won't put you in with random people who are not in your like pre-made group, even though you may be playing with um, some random players.
That makes
That's nice.
sense.
I think that provides a safe space for people. So that's understandable.
I agree, because I was going to ask about just, the safety aspects, but I wanted to check in with CJ. Did you have a comment or a question in this particular area that we're exploring?
Well, I wanted to ask, my main computer is a Mac Mini, not a PC. I have a laptop, Hewlett Packard laptop. Do you think, I mean, I'm assuming that Mac is out, but maybe my laptop might work?
So, funnily enough, I'm also on a MacBook. A couple years ago, um, a version of League of Legends was released for um, Mac. And so I think, honestly, the majority of my time playing League of Legends has been on a Mac. Although I will say I have to run the game on very, very low settings to enjoy it. So it's possible. I definitely wouldn't discount it, or say you have to go out and buy something in order to play it. I think realistically, it can be played on a Mac, and as long as you adjust the settings, you should be able to enjoy the game.
That sounds good. Is there an app specifically for Mac that you download, or is it just a website you go to?
So going to the League of Legends website, signing up for an account, and then downloading the client to play the game is it's the way to go. In the past, that's what I've done, and it's been pretty straightforward and easy. I will say over the past year or so, I have been testing out some virtual machines that will play different games just to kind of see if that's a better experience. So it kind of just depends. Your results may vary.
Mac might work. Mac is in.
Yeah, I mean, CJ, I also added the link to their website and also the previously mentioned Summoner School on Reddit. So if you want to check that out, that may be a good resource to start.
Where did you do that?
On Twitch. So over on the streams
Oh.
chat, it's available right there. And I believe it doesn't give you the option to download the application for the game until after you create the account.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to let you know it was there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Getting excited.
Yeah, I'm super interested how you feel about it as a person that's new at this too, and are you interested in playing yourself?
I am. I think I am. I have been toying with the idea of getting a PlayStation. I've got adult friends who love their Xbox and play all kinds of games. I was been thinking about getting a PlayStation because I'm kind of old school. I used to play Tomb Raider. So when I saw an email from the library about League of Legends, I was like, oh, I got to check this out because I'm looking to do some sort of gaming just really for social interaction and just for some fun in the evenings.
It's really neat too because you don't need to invest in a console. It's free to start. So that's good. And I have a question for Caitlin. As an esports coach, what are typical things you do to support players on the team?
Sure. So this kind of applies to all of my athletes and all of my teams. Basically, number one is listen to player feedback and keep a line of communication open. And that goes both ways. You know, if we entered a competition that they didn't like, or if I think they can be doing something better, it's key to have that line of communication open, and not just about the game, but honestly about everything. Number two, for our players, what we've found to be the best kind of practice is scrimmages against other colleges. The other college teams are usually pretty similar in skill level, and so it gives us I think, a unique opportunity to figure out what our weaknesses are and kind of turn those into challenges. And then the third part for supporting players is to help them identify their strengths. And then also, again, instead of, posing their weaknesses as something bad, turning that into a challenge for them so that they can use that to become better players, better teammates, or, try to work on something that is maybe not to the skill level that they want it to be yet.
That's really fascinating. I was curious about that very question. And just as a follow-up, Caitlin, I mean, it sounds like because of the way the game is with the strategy and you're working with other people, it sounds like there's a lot of things that you're doing that's integrated when you're playing. It sounds like there's strategy involved, so you're thinking pretty hard, it seems like. And also, do you think that is dexterity, like being able to manipulate the controls, is that a factor as well?
Yes and no. So most people in esports, I think, will refer to that as mechanics and their reaction time. But I think when it comes to League of Legends, because there's so many champions, you have all sorts of options, and there are some champions that require a lot of, I think, will require the player to have a fast reaction time and very skillful movements. But then there are also champions that don't require as much of that. And it really just depends. I definitely think there's a champion for everyone in League of Legends, whether it be someone that you identify with because of their lore or how they're represented in the game, or because they have a very cool ability. So yes, I think it does play a part of the game, in someone's gameplay, but I think also, if maybe you're someone that's just not mechanically gifted, there are a lot of champions that can be played and played very well. So I don't think it's a limiting factor. I think it's just one of those challenges that once you identify it, you can start working towards a solution.
That makes sense. And I'm looking forward to next week because I know we're going to talk more in depth about characters. I did want to ask just, and this is getting ahead a little bit, but just for me personally, since I really waited to choose a character, if you're a beginner and you really don't know who to pick, is there a particular character that you would recommend for a person before they actually get into exploring the different characters or champions and getting to know? And it sounds like really people have to find like their perfect fit to play the game.
Really good question. I'm trying to think back to like when I was a new player. And honestly, when I picked my first champion, I just picked the one that looked the cutest. It's the champion that I picked at the time is not really a champion I play anymore, but it was pretty important step of me figuring out what I do and don't like to play. So I'd say pick whichever looks like the most fun, and if it is not fun, then you can absolutely pick another champion.
That makes sense because that was the other thing that I was curious about, if it's fairly easy to just switch out if you find that, one of the characters that you picked isn't working. Is it pretty easy to do that?
Yeah, so the one caveat there is when you pick a champion and you enter a game, you have to play that champion until the game finishes. But the next game, you can pick whoever you want to play. If it's someone different, great. If not, that's cool too. So yeah, once you pick a champion and you start a game, you're locked into that for that game. But once it's over, you can choose something new.
That sounds great. So I wanted to check in with Yanel and CJ and see if y'all had any questions.
I'm good for the time being. I'm just absorbing. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Same here. What about you, Yanel?
I'm just really excited to start playing. I've seen my friends play throughout the years, and for some reason, I would just not play. I don't know why. I don't have a reason not to play. Uh, Gives me a really good overview of it, and I'm excited to pick my character. Uh, I was trying to decide on the tutorial because it gives you the option to try them. Um, Throughout the same game because it's a tutorial. So I just couldn't decide, and I just kept looking at the different abilities, and maybe I'm overthinking it, who knows? And it might be just best to choose one and play a whole game and see how it goes.
That makes sense. I was going to ask if I might. I mean, I wanted to pull up my screen and just ask some questions about the interface because I literally just got to I made an account and I got to the site and I haven't done anything yet. And there was so much on the page. And I was wondering if you minded just kind of giving us a little tour, Caitlin?
Sure.
So let me get that set up really quickly.
Oh, wait, do you need me to set it up on my end, or are you going to stream to me?
Whatever works. I mean, I was going to try to just pull mine really briefly, just because
Okay,
I'm like
that
right.
works.
Thank you. Yeah, because I'm at the very, very beginning. So as you can see, I mean, I'm just right here. I haven't done anything. And so, like, I'm looking at the site, and I mean, I can see where it looks like there's a spot where, once I meet people in the game, where I guess, you can communicate with people. Like, can people communicate with you if you're not friended, or is it because they have to be on the same team as you?
Yeah, so in the game, when they're on your team, you'll be able to chat with them in the chat box. When you're out of game, as long as you have someone as added as a friend, you can send them a private message and send them an invite to your game, things like that.
That makes sense. And then, I was just looking at the different, I mean, it looks like I would click here to play, but just some of these other things, are these just variations of the game or different missions or?
Let's see here. So when you hit play, or oh, sorry, the Journey Project, Skyglass, those are like the different campaigns that are going on at any one time. Like Dr. Mundo here, he's getting some new skins. There's some of the lore that's coming out about him, and so he gets a feature page on the client. So that's kind of just as time goes on, those things will rotate in and out. When there's new champions or new game modes, you'll see it there, like on the client.
Cool, thank you. And actually, I was just going to go ahead and put it back to our Discord screen. As I said, I really appreciate it. I was just kind of confused when I got to this page.
Yeah, no worries. It can definitely be a lot. Even for myself, like there's just a lot that I don't click into on a regular basis. I'm more of like, let me log in and load up and hit play and just play a game. But it really depends. There's so much that surrounds League of Legends. Again, I think there's something for everyone here, whether you're really interested in backstories and lore, or the artwork of the game. I mean, there's just definitely a lot to dive into.
It sounds that way. I mean, I do feel quite a bit more confident. So I wanted to thank you again just for that short explanation. Just, so that way later I can actually go in and dip my toe. Like, it looks like Yanel is already in the tutorial. And I wanted to actually check in with Yanel and CJ and see if y'all had any comments or questions.
I'm good. Excited. I haven't set up anything just yet, but are we having this meeting every week? Because by next week I can definitely get in.
Yeah, and thank you for asking. So we're going to have, this is the first one of 4 sessions, and tonight is the intro. The next one, which is next Wednesday, is going to be about characters. Then the Wednesday after that is going to be about strategies, and then the last one is going to be just about putting it all together and actually playing. So I'm really looking forward to it. I do hope to have at least the tutorial. Like, I don't know if I can get through all of it, but I definitely want to be able to have that done, so that way I'll be a bit more prepared and more understanding of the the discussion that we're going to have.
I'm excited. I had not heard of this before, and I don't game, so I'm excited. I think I'm gonna go ahead and jump in myself as well.
That is really awesome. And I'm kind of curious. This is for Caitlin. Do you think that League of Legends is like an entry level game? Because like for me, this is like the first, I would say, like serious game that I've really interacted with.
I think it definitely is one of those it depends answers. Um, for some, it may be. For others, it might feel like a um, what is the word that I'm searching for? Uh, like a game that has a high knowledge barrier. Um, I think it really just depends on the individual. Like, if you pose this as a challenge, like a good challenge for yourself to learn and play this game and enjoy it, then I think it won't feel like a high barrier. I will say, like, there's just so much information, and even for myself, having played so many years, I find that there's just so much to know and learn. But don't get discouraged, don't get overwhelmed. Like, everyone who has ever played this game has had to start with this tutorial, like has had to walk this exact same path.
That's really helpful and very, very encouraging. I really appreciate that.
That is extremely encouraging. Specifically, for me, I've always been interested in it. I've watched the LCS Championship for about 3 years now, like on and off, not continuously. Um, I know there's one going on right now,
Mhm.
and I've always seen it around me. I just had never really been involved. I found it a little intimidating because everyone around me was just so much more advanced. Um, so I think this is a good intro series for, I hope we can grow a group of people and maybe make it more comfortable for others to join and start as adults, because I know many players start from a very, very young age. So it's interesting to see it happen as an adult, learn as an adult. Um, and it's just, I do agree, it's so much information to absorb. Um, but yeah, I'm excited.
And I mean, I think the really, really like one of the best things about starting so late is the fact that everyone else has already written the guides. Everyone else has already written have done the YouTube videos. There's already creators out there that have been teaching this game for many years, and so I think there's a lot of benefit in that. There's a lot of resources out there to kind of help fill the gaps. Like, I think, any question that you could possibly have about the game right now, someone somewhere on the internet has answered it. So I think that's a good thing, is like the wealth of knowledge that exists for us. Um, but maybe that's just glass half full thinking.
Yeah, it's awesome. It is definitely comforting.
I agree. I wanted to ask really quickly because you mentioned, Caitlin, that you might share your screen, and I'm actually kind of curious. I mean, if you don't mind just showing us a little taste of, what it looks like, that would be awesome. If that's something that you'd like to do this evening.
Sure, take me a few minutes to get it loaded up. But yeah, I can definitely show you what like my screen would look like. Um,
That is awesome. Thank you. Because one of the other, I guess, questions that I had as well is generally as a pro player. My guess is you probably have slightly different equipment. Is it very different than, say, like a casual, person that plays casually?
So for me personally, I still play on my MacBook, so definitely not the highest end equipment that I could have. But our esports program at St. Mary's has invested in um, pretty I'd say, pretty strong, fast machines to run not just League of Legends, but all of the other games that we play as well. It's not the most high-end stuff, but they're pretty, I'd say, powerful machines in their own right. Now, again, that doesn't mean that like you have to have that to play the game. That's just what we invested in because we have so many different esports teams, not just our League of Legends team, though it definitely benefits them as well.
That makes sense, and that's very reassuring to me because that is one of the things that I worried about. If I really enjoy this game, am I going to need to, well, like Yanel was talking about earlier about acquiring new things, and so I was a little worried about that.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen.
And while we're getting that set up, I wanted to ask Yanel and CJ if y'all had a question or comments that you'd like to contribute.
I think I'm good for right now. Thank you, though.
Awesome.
Okay, are you able to see my screen?
I think so. Let me go ahead and get that sorted out. Okay, I think we have it on the screen. This is pretty exciting.
So mine looks pretty similar to yours. Like I have all of the project stuff, the Dr. Mundo stuff. I think really the only thing that's different is I've got a pretty big friends list of people who I've played with throughout the years or my current athletes. When I go to play games, I'll usually. So I think on your clans right now, some of these are going to be locked for you until you reach certain levels. But these are some of the other game modes that you can play. And Nexus Blitz is one of the like rotating game modes that they have week to week, but pretty similar objective, like trying to destroy the opposing team's base. ARAM here stands for all random, all mid. So everyone is assigned a random champion, and they're just playing in one lane. I think once depending on how many games you want to play. Once you get past tutorial, I think ARAM's actually a really great way to learn a bunch of different champions because you're going to be playing a random one every single round. And these games last maybe 20 to 30 minutes, whereas Summoner's Rift can be 30 minutes and on. So, again, personal preference. But
Yeah, that's
yeah.
a good tip.
Yeah, that's really
Definitely.
helpful. Yeah, especially, with the time investment, because maybe you might want to do something pretty quickly. So I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I think both game modes are, fun in their own right. It's just a matter of what you're looking to play that day.
That is pretty awesome. So do they have like well, I mean, I guess because they're different, they probably do have a different vibe. I was just kind of curious if there was, and it looks like the stream cut off, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I stopped sharing
Oh,
my
gotcha.
screen.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Let
But
me.
yeah, I think that's a good question of like the different vibes or attitudes of each game. I think because like there's just so many different people who play League of Legends, you're gonna get so many different people every single time unless you're playing with a group that you know pretty well. And I mean that's both good and bad. You'll play with people who are super nice and welcoming and accommodating, and then there's also a possibility that you're going to play with people who are not so nice and kind of mean and not great teammates. But I would say in those moments, be as liberal with the mute button as you would like to be.
Thank you, because that was one other question that I was about to ask you. I was like, well, if you do encounter rude people, I mean, how do you manage that, especially as a new person?
Honestly, I would say mute them, and then when the game's over, report them or block them so you don't have to play with them again. Because, you know, yeah, not everyone is nice, but at the same time, they're not entitled to your attention or your responses. Um, so, you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I saw at the beginning when you sign up for the game, there's that agreement of the community, and it asks you to respect others, and it kind of gives you more information on how to report a person, which is very interesting to me because I had never heard of that. Um, and I found out that's somewhat recent.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just glad it's there, that it's an option now, to provide a safe community for people to just play and have fun. Of course, it can be competitive, but um, yeah, I found that interesting. I don't know how I would handle a person being rude, but yeah.
No, I mean, it's a totally valid and real concern. I mean, there's that anonymity on the internet, but again, at the same time, like, I feel that no one's entitled to your time. And so, if this is the only 30 minutes that I have to spend with this unpleasant person, then I'm going to mute them for the 30 minutes and enjoy the game for what it is.
That's a good call.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I wanted to check in with CJ. Did have you had any experiences like that, or?
I'm laughing because normally when I think of mute, I think of muting myself, not someone else. So when I heard Caitlin say be generous with the mute button, I was like, is that because I'm going to try and hold back all the rude things I want to say back, or what's going on? But that's nice that you can actually mute somebody else if they're being rude or aggressive. And because I'm new, that might happen because maybe somebody else will get irritated with me while I'm in the process of trying to learn. I don't know.
I felt the same way. You're not alone.
So I'm glad that the mute is for the other person if that's the case.
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring up. I definitely think it's part of the terminology that I forget. It's not muting myself, but it's like muting them from talking to me.
Well, I guess the main thing is just maybe, hopefully, between now and next week is just to jump in and get started and see what it feels like.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, is there anything that you would recommend that we do? I mean, it sounds like Yanel is really pretty well started on, getting used to the game and things like that. But for those of us who haven't, I mean, is there maybe a sequence or of things that we should do, or anything that you might recommend for us?
Sure. Yeah. So number one, again, don't get discouraged or overwhelmed. Like I said before, everyone who has played this game has started at the exact same place. And then I think one thing that can help is if you know what kind of learner you are, use that to your advantage. If you're someone who learns by doing or trial and error, then hop into a couple of games and kind of, explore new things and see if that's if that helps you learn the game quicker. If you're someone who learns really well from like guides or videos, then again, there's a lot of resources out there about minions or farming or champions or items. Like, again, any question that you have has probably been answered somewhere on the internet. And then number 3, do the practice tool, do the tutorial. And then after that, it really kind of just depends on how fun you think the game is. If it's something where you still want to learn more champions, then maybe when you're done with the tutorial, play some ARAMs. I think that can definitely force a player to learn a bunch of new champions very quickly. And again, because it's all random, it also means your opponents are playing random champions, so they may not be as skilled on those champions either. So it can work both ways. I think that's kind of the way to look at it is, yes, I'm a new player, I'm learning something, but odds are so are the people on the opposing team.
That's very encouraging because that was one of the other questions that I was thinking, when you're describing, I was thinking, are people pretty tolerant of newer players usually?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think you'll have some players who are accommodating and welcoming, but I also think there are some players out there with, not a lot of patience. I think when you're a beginner, it can be fun to learn with other beginners on your team, or with friends who have played the game, who are at least patient and willing to help teach or mentor, until you kind of get the hang of it and start figuring out what you like to play the most or what have you. So I think I could go either way, either playing with friends who have played before, or playing with a group of people who are also learning or of similar skill level.
That makes sense. That's very encouraging. I was going to mention too, we are kind of closing into our last 20 minutes, and I wanted to ask Yanel and CJ if y'all had any questions that you'd like to ask in this last portion.
I may have to get off here in a second. I really appreciate this opportunity to learn. I think I'm questioned out at this point for myself, but I've really enjoyed learning, and I'm looking forward to diving in.
Awesome. And thank you and welcome as well. It's been really cool to have your perspective.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good evening. Hopefully I'll see y'all next week.
Yep. See you next week.
Thank you so much, CJ.
Right. Thank you.
So just to check in with Yanel, did you have any questions or comments? You're the more experienced person in the room. Well, I mean, Caitlin is the most experienced person in the room, but you're the next most experienced person in the room.
I mean, Caitlin was talking about learning styles and how people feel more comfortable getting more familiar with the game. I have to admit that when I first started, my first notion of existence of League was the LCS, like the Championship Series, and whenever I first saw it, I just saw so many colors and just like, I was extremely confused by all of the shiny stuff that comes out when people actually start doing damage. Is it something that, how would you say it helps to keep track of where you are or where your champion's at during something like this? Because it escalates really quick.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you asked that question because this is such a great question. So, on the League of Legends client, like when you're in game, there is actually an option to turn on colorblind mode, and that's how I play. Because in colorblind mode, you can your champion will be essentially highlighted or outlined in a different color. And that's what has helped me. I've also adjusted like my display settings so that it's the colors are a little more muted. But I would say, just when you're in a game and you have the settings panel open, just kind of figure out what works best. But I think colorblind mode is actually a really, really awesome setting that they have in the game. And yeah, it definitely helps me when there's like all 10 people in a small area. I can at least see my person.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I just I get overwhelmed maybe because there are so many people to keep track of, and I also notice that I have this may be really, really dumb, but I notice I have trouble seeing who is part of my team and who is not. I think this may be part of the tutorial too, because I am assuming when you start a game, you see which champions are on your team. Is that
Yes.
something I'll see in the
Yeah.
future? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Interesting.
Is it?
Go for it, Lauren.
Oh no, I was just curious. Is it like a floating label that you see, or?
So if I can recall correctly, so on in any game you'll have like two sides. They'll be referred to by colors. So the bottom side is usually blue team. The top side is usually, I think now it's red team. I think before it was purple, but now I think it's red. And your minions will be the same team color. Your allies will be highlighted in a similar color or outlined in a similar color. And when you hit the tab button when you're in game to kind of see the scoreboard or the leaderboard, or scoreboard, sorry, you'll see who's on which side. But I think for me, even now, because there's so many champions and a few of them look alike, their icons can be somewhat similar, and even now I get them confused. I think that's part of the learning curve. But usually, all things your team or your allies will be of one color, and the opposing team will be of the opposite color.
That makes sense, and thank you. That's really helpful because that is one thing when we were watching Yanel, I was trying to figure out what I was seeing. And I guess sometimes it's kind of hard, like Yanel says, when it's very busy.
Yeah, it gets crazy sometimes, and not only that, you're noticing all of the players move around you, near you, and that there's the minions too. Then, of course, we're attacking, like for example, a turret, and it just starts lighting up, and it's just confusing. And I don't know if it was like my attack or somebody else on my team, and I get confused. So I usually like move my mouse away and kind of like retreat to get a grasp of what's going on, and kind of like, this is very beginner, but I kind of like reposition my fingers back individually and just see what I'm doing and try to remember the abilities, of course, for each key. And it's a lot of information to take in at first, but I'm hoping I can gain a little more experience by next week.
Yeah, for once I'm excited about homework.
Yeah, it's engaging too, and I didn't realize I had spent a little time over, so that is actually the reason I was a little late to our stream. Then I said, oh God, I have to go back. I have to go back and actually work, not just have fun and prepare.
That is really awesome. It sounds like it's going to be fabulous. I'm really looking forward to this.
I mean, I think y'all are gonna have a lot of fun, and I'm really excited for next week and um, the other streams that are coming up. You know, it's a game that's beloved by many, and I think, even though this game is over 10 years old, it's still very appealing to new players. Like there's just something about the game that is inherently fun, whether it's the champions or the strategy or the competitiveness or playing with friends. Like there's just that inherent thing about it that has people coming back for more.
That's amazing and awesome. And I get a sense too that it seems like it brings people together.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the interesting things about League of Legends is the regions. There's a North America region, there's a Latin America region, there's two regions for Europe, and the regions are so big that like you don't have to switch servers to play with your friends. Like you're all on the same server for the most part, and I think that makes it really easy to connect with people, with your friends or whomever is playing with you.
Yeah, that sounds, it sounds really awesome. I can't wait to dive in. And I did want to mention, because, we should probably wrap up the stream, but I wanted to thank you and Dante so much. I mean, we're so excited to have you on the next streams with us and sharing your expertise and just learning about the game. So, again, thank you so much for being here on the stream with us tonight.
Thank you so much for inviting us. This is a topic that I really enjoy talking about, that my players really enjoy talking about. And so being able to introduce players to the game or just be a resource is, that means a lot to us.
That's awesome. And I did want to let people know who are watching that the next stream is going to be next Wednesday. That's going to be the 30th, and it's going to be from 7:30 to around 9ish, depending on what we end up doing. We're going to be exploring characters, and so I'm really, really looking forward to your expertise, Caitlin, and Dante's as well, just learning about the different champions, because I think Yanel said that there are more than 100 of them that we can choose from.
Yes, I think now it's over 150, so lots of options.
Yeah, that's so crazy to me. I'm just very excited. I'm glad. It's crazy that it became an opportunity within my job to learn something that I've wanted to learn for a very long time. So I'm just really excited to get expert advice.
Same here. And it really seems like you were mentioning earlier, Caitlin, that it's really a community, and I'm really excited about that aspect, is getting to join that wider community of people that play this game.
Absolutely. And again, like there's something for everyone in this game, and figuring out what you're playing the game for and finding people with similar goals is, I think, part of the fun.
It sounds really amazing. And again, I really, I'm looking forward to doing my homework over the week and, exploring and getting to the actual gameplay as opposed to being in the tutorials. And I did want to jump in and ask you, Nell, did you have anything that you wanted to mention? Because I think we should probably wrap up the stream.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you so much, and I look forward to next week.
Awesome. And I just wanted to wish people that are watching a wonderful evening. Again, thank you so much, Caitlin. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and we're really looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. You too.
Awesome. Goodbye, everybody.